Ilya Davlyach, a journalist for the Telegram channel Możemy Objaśnić, is already with us on the live broadcast. Greetings to you.
Good afternoon, Katerina. Greetings to all the viewers.
Good afternoon, Ilya. In your opinion, have the methods and approaches changed? Or is it nothing new and we're seeing the same situation as last time? Do they just see a person and grab them on the street? Or are they acting more sophisticatedly now? For example, by staging some kind of traffic accident, like come to the police station for this reason, and then you're off to the front. How are they operating?
Well, no, actually, what's happening now, these roundups of people, like that famous story in the Penza region where there were so-called raids by military enlistment staff, we didn't see that before. Plus, there are now raids on various businesses. We know that they are recording employees' data there, and they are still pressuring them to sign a contract at certain state-owned companies or organizations that are part of specific state corporations. They actually have a list of people they need to, well, not a list, not specifically by name, but a quota of employees who must sign a contract with the Ministry of Defense and go to war. There was a story recently with Wildberries. Right now, there's a lot of talk about how poor, unfortunate Wildberries is being attacked. Oh, they're so offended and all that. But in reality, there was a similar situation at Wildberries too. And Wildberries, the company of Tatiana Kim, the Mirzayan brothers, and Karimov, who were all actually under the chief of staff of the Presidential Executive Office, Anton Vino, they also had a story like that. They also had lists, a number of employees that they had to recruit for the front, well, so that they would sign a contract. So this is new, yes. And a regulatory framework has been created in Russia so that these raids, these roundups continue. Because, well, obviously, Russians, for some reason, don't want to just go and get killed, in the war for His Majesty Vladimir Putin, who sits there in his bunker and doesn't even poke his nose out. Yeah, well, a strange story. For some reason, the average person doesn't want to go to war and die there. That's why they have to use other methods. That's why they have to force people, to threaten them. Last year, during, I think, the spring draft, for the first time, there were numerous reports that young men were being threatened. I mean, literally, police officers come, beat them up, and threaten them. Well, I won't say it. But yeah, that word has been known since the Russian, 2010s. Well, in general, they threaten to use physical force if they don't sign a contract, don't join the army. Yeah, there are two different forks in the road there. So the situation's actually developing along a rather dangerous trajectory. If before they were somehow persuading people, there were billboards hanging saying we'll offer you this much money, these kinds of concessions, various perks and goodies we'll offer you. Now everything has shifted to the point where they are literally conducting raids, literally threatening people, and literally trying to draft them into the war. But with all that said, we are also seeing a different situation. There have already been several reports, actually quite a lot of reports, definitely more than a dozen, about relatives and acquaintances of people who are being forcibly sent to the army or to the front, defending them, fighting back to save these people. That didn't happen before either. In other words, resistance to these, frankly, illegal actions by military enlistment office staff is also being observed now in the Russian Federation. And that, by the way, is new. I mean, unlike in the past when people would say, well, yeah, they drafted my Slavic to the front, what can you do? Now people are no longer willing to put up with that, and they are fighting to get their loved ones back so they don't get sent into the meat grinder.
Yeah. You see, there's even this woman, I don't remember now what region she's from, but she keeps showing up, sometimes with a T-shirt, sometimes with a sign saying, bring back my son. He's been at the front since 2022, and it's not even clear what's happening to him. So she went to a local festival in our city. She was there with a sign like this. It might have even just been an A4 sheet of paper, and she spent about 3 hours at the police station, and they told her that she was ruining people's mood with these actions of hers, and essentially asked her to put that sign away. But the reaction of society, I mean, it's clear that probably somewhere people are starting to understand that they don't want to go to war. How widespread this is, we can't say yet since we don't see any protests or anything. But people are at least starting to come out and do something. That's already a good sign. And the Russians are preparing to deploy an additional contingent of North Koreans on their territory and have already received additional ballistics from Pyongyang. This was stated by the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, in his evening address. Earlier, the head of state reported that the Russian Federation had made the decision to have between 30 and 50,000 DPRK soldiers on its territory. Let's listen to Zelensky and come back.
For the first time, they cannot fight without the help of North Korea. They are currently preparing to deploy an additional contingent of Koreans on their territory. They have received, just imagine, additional ballistic missiles from North Korea. And everyone in the world must understand what this means. This is not just about the lives of people in Ukraine, not just about threats to us specifically. Ballistic missiles from North Korea and their other weapons are being improved thanks to collaboration with Russia. The more North Korean strikes there are here in Ukraine and Europe, the more their missiles and soldiers are used, and the more they correct their imperfections and lack of knowledge, the greater the danger will be accordingly for Japan, for the Republic of Korea, for the Philippines, and for other countries in the region.
Ilya, the North Koreans, they were already in Ukraine, and now there's another batch. What does this indicate? This is an internal crisis, a problem within the army of the Russian Federation itself. This is a nod toward North Korea. How should we interpret and view this new friendship with these North Korean soldiers?
Oh, you know, Katrina, I'm going to refer you to propaganda suddenly. Before we went on air, I watched a magnificent, truly magnificent, without any of that, without any lies, a magnificent film from the propaganda channel Russia 24. The film is called The Korean Miracle, and it tells the story of Russia's friendship with North Korea. And, you know, it's one of those cases where everything is so bad, that it's actually good. In this film, they openly admit that North Korea has remained the only partner of the Russian Federation. Here's the question. Just how deep, into the ass did you have to crawl for your only friend to be, as they themselves admit, the most closed-off country, where people are killed, oppressed, imprisoned, and where people have nothing to eat? And in this film, they actually confirm that, indeed, the North Koreans, first of all, fought in the Kursk region. I think the figure mentioned was 6,000 people, which is quite telling, right? I mean, in the Russian Federation, they couldn't find 6,000 people who would go to defend the Kursk region. In the Russian Federation, they couldn't find ballistic missiles there to strike North Korea with. As far as I understand, there were already confirmations today. I think I saw it on the BBC, that they hit Zaporizhia with North Korean ballistics. This is actually a telling story too. First of all, it seems that Russia has no decent missiles of its own left. So once again, where did this great damn geostrategist, who should have retired long ago, if not been in the grave, have to lead the country if there are no decent ballistic missiles left in Russia, if there are no soldiers left, if there is no one left, and they are forced to scrape the bottom of the barrel, threaten Russians, and recruit North Koreans, which they even admit on the Russia 24 channel? There are also some magnificent moments when, like, the propagandist from Russia 24 walks through North Korea and says, everything here is magnificent. The stories about there being no electricity in North Korea are actually lies. Just look at this panorama. For some reason, they show the center of North Korea, Pyongyang, but they don't show the outskirts, where, yes, the situation is usually much worse. They talk about what a magnificent road there is in Pyongyang. And in the background, behind the propagandist Popov, you can see paving stones that are wobbling like this. But Popov doesn't notice it. Popov reports on Russia 24 that North Koreans are eating wonderfully. They have an abundance of food and restaurants are packed with people. At the same time, he is the only one in the restaurant at the hotel, and they show all of this on Russia 24. Yes, they are showing a film called The Korean Miracle. They're telling Russians how they should, well, literally strive for the ideal called North Korea. The problem, again, is that we don't see Russians striving to go to North Korea, but we did see protests yesterday at the Supreme Court building when the Yabloko party was removed from the elections for advocating for peace. We have seen numerous repressions against Russians who are being thrown in prison for the word war. They're being imprisoned for protesting. And how Russians who ended up on the front lines are being sent to pits because, for some reason, they don't want to go and kill and die for Vladimir Putin. That is what we are seeing. And in our view, in my view, the situation there will only get worse for the Russian authorities because they have nothing else to offer. They can only offer, well, death for I don't even know what for. For some ephemeral ideas like Little Motherland or I don't know what else, but it's so ridiculous that honestly, it's already scary.
Little Motherland has truly become an idiom by now. You know, you've probably seen it. There's a film about North Korea available to the public, shot by colleagues. If I'm not mistaken, Europeans. I think it was Britain that filmed it. Maybe the States. I won't lie, I can't recall anymore. And the trick there was that the film crew had two cassettes, two discs that they would insert to record the video footage. And the North Koreans? Yes, that's right. And they, showed, you're talking about food, they specifically emphasized nutrition because the disc that they kept, the raw footage, wasn't handed over to the North Korean propagandists for review. And you could see how they were teaching these Koreans, how they were coaching them, telling them you live well, you eat well. And there was a constant emphasis on food. And that is the very first sign that everything is actually very bad. And why does North Korea need all this experience? They are planning to start a war. The experience of the Russian Federation might be helpful to them in some way. Perhaps Russia found the money to buy weapons from North Korea in such quantities. Why do you think North Korea needs this, and how close could this collaboration get?
Well, I think that Russia still has some money left after all. I mean, it's not for nothing. Listen, North Korea is not your best friend who is friends with you just because, well, you're friends. This is about money, first of all, and food. That's why when Popov and Rossiya 24 talk in the film The Korean Miracle about how everything is wonderful there regarding food, it's just that for some reason, well, global indices and reports and the accounts of people who actually managed to escape North Korea say something completely different. But it's obvious that they won't tell you about that on Rossiya 24. No, North Korea is a country that is always engaged in blackmail. And in the BC film you were talking about, and in many others, and there were films on National Geographic too, it's always, well, it's obvious, this story where the country lives by blackmail. If you don't provide us with food, then we'll launch a missile somewhere. For many years they got by on this. They lived on this. And the states themselves, well, helped out, supplied food to the great North Korea, which threatened to launch a missile somewhere. Apparently, these threats are no longer enough now because, well, what are you going to threaten Trump with? That you'll launch a missile somewhere? Trump will say, yeah, screw you guys, go ahead and launch it. I've got Iran here, I've got Mexico here, and as for you guys in North Korea, do whatever you want, even if you all just drop dead there. So threats are no longer enough. But you have to be friends with someone, because it's impossible for one country to survive on its own, right? Russia cannot live without North Korea. It's amazing what times we live in. The DPRK cannot live without Russia, just like that, They found each other, this sweet couple found each other and are now trying to survive. The problem is that for regular people, this does more harm than good. Because, well, yes, Putin will get some missiles. He's already getting them from North Korea, this very ballistic stuff. Yes, North Korea will get some food supplies from Russia. After all, agriculture in Russia, despite many problems, is at a fairly decent level, and supplies from Russia to North Korea are ongoing, and they are large-scale and, in fact, largely help North Korea survive. Although on Russia 24, they certainly don't talk about this. They show a restaurant there where Mikhail Popov, who, by the way, is known for hosting the program New Russian Sensations on the NTV channel, and talking about how Alla Pugacheva betrayed the Russian Federation. Also a giant step for a propagandist who now works for the Russia channel. God forgive me.
Yeah, let's wrap up this news segment with the topic of mobilization. Because, well, the North Koreans are unlikely to save the situation among Putin's troops. There will be elections. It's clear that after the elections, a wave will hit. At that point, they'll basically be taking everyone and sending them into this meat grinder. And what ways are there to avoid this fate, this destiny, as of today, in your opinion?
Look, actually, the question here is very complex and serious because, again, the State Duma and the Russian authorities have left very few loopholes. But if we're talking about ways out, alternative civilian service still exists in Russia. This is what people who have been drafted for war, drafted into the army for various reasons, need to push for. Yes, your religion doesn't allow it. You have health problems. After all, in Russia, there are still courts, there are still medical boards, and there are still ways to appeal. In any case, you shouldn't just stay silent and, well, go to war, go into the army silently agreeing. Because if you go agreeing, nodding your head like that, then you will definitely end up on the front lines, and most likely you will die there. Therefore, first of all, and our experts talk about this, and we agree with them, you need to use the option of alternative civilian service. So, if you are already on the hook with the military enlistment office and they are calling you, coming to you, first of all, you can change your address, move to another apartment, to another place of residence, and not open the door. And if you already ended up in a critical situation where, for example, a case has been opened against you and a trial is being prepared, believe me, a criminal case is better. A suspended sentence is better. Maybe even a short term, a couple of months in a pretrial detention center or in a settlement colony, than being sent to the front and returning from there in a wooden coffin.
Dying for Putin, let's put it frankly and directly. Ilya, thank you very much for this conversation. Ilya Davlyach, a journalist for the Telegram channel Mozhem Objasnit, was with us on the live broadcast.